Welcome to North Dakota After Dark. We are here in North Dakota. It's certainly after dark in the middle of November. With us tonight, we have Mr. Kyle Kozer Especial. He's like the Modelo of all things podcast. And Kelly Where's Her Cat? Moreland.
Yeah, he'll show up. Don't you
Yeah,
worry.
that's good. Guys, what's going on?
Um, just seasonal depression, I guess. That
Too
kicked
soon.
off like an ex boyfriend this morning that you didn't want to see. I actually yelled at my 10-year-old when he goes, "Yes, I prayed for snow." I go, "Why would you do that?" He didn't have control over it, to be fair, but still, we don't have to do that. We don't have to tempt God to punish us. So
You could put up like a fake Protestant God in your house, and you could pray to that, and then nothing will happen, right? Like that's
nothing
what
will
I would do.
happen,
Just
right?
sucker him into
Right.
that. Too far? Too soon?
Yeah, if
First
we
90
haven't been
seconds?
canceled yet, that might just be the time we toe across that
Maybe that's
line.
it. Yeah, who knows? Who
Well,
knows?
Kyle, how about you? What's going on?
Well, I shoveled my driveway today and noticed that now I have to shovel it again. Um, I built my outdoor rink, so we'll need to have Tony Bina back on. See if he can approach Annie Schmaltz type numbers.
Yeah, that's okay. So that's a little fun fact about Annie Schmaltz. They have an absolute. You're gonna have to come out
Okay.
and see because their ODR is downright impressive, and they have not one but two Zambonis, actual Zambonis. They call it the Bruce Spicer Memorial Rink.
Okay.
They have two Zambonis, and they are currently in construction of like a full-fledged warming house.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, it's ODR goals out there.
Yeah. So is the tag, Bruce Spicer Memorial Outdoor Rink, we're making kids soft? Like, what's the tagline?
Well, the tagline could go very weird because like the other special thing about the Schmaltzes is that you can be, kids can be skating on the ODR, and in the back, two pigs are playing what's leapfrog,
Oh,
uh, for all
oh,
intents, because they're at a farm, so you don't get the benefit of not getting like a crash course in the birds and the bees. So
got it.
that's an actual thing that's happened while kids are playing hockey. The kids didn't really seem to notice, but yeah, it's just I don't know anybody that nobody else's ODR can offer
No.
what theirs can. I mean, just on so many levels. So it you we maybe that's an episode we could do. Would be comparing. We could go around drinks, of course, because
Yeah.
obviously,
Yeah.
and we could rate ODRs and just see how everybody's compares because that was also a popular episode. People
That
like
really
the
was.
ODR.
Yeah. That was a high end. We could also do it live from the Schmaltz's one and just declare them the winner.
We could. I mean, it's a little unfair when you live out in the country and like, hey, where can I park my Zambonis?
Yeah.
Oh, which barn do we have? So it's a little. There's an unfair advantage there, but yet, when you're the top, you're the top. So
Yeah. Um, I did not have, when I lived in the country, I did not have a Zamboni, but I had a little neighbor kid, also named Parker, who would uh, do his best to shovel a 10 by 10 foot square bi-weekly, which I also appreciated.
Life goals for Parkers everywhere.
Yeah.
well, yeah, for Parkers.
Yep. So since Kyle so aptly before we started this said that I had to introduce the show as he delegated that, which must mean he's in management, I'm going to take what he called Corey time a little further and throw out our first topic, unless you had an agenda, Kyle.
I do have a hidden agenda, but not one I'm willing to share.
Okay.
Not one I'm willing to
Yeah.
share.
So what I want to talk about is the annual male attire at hockey rinks everywhere. And
Male.
whether or not you guys honestly believe, can you see my screen?
Yeah.
Whether or not you honestly believe my wife will let me purchase and wear this item of flannel.
Why not? I think it's a tremendous shirt.
It's so here's my plan, guys. This shirt is got some Carolina blue,
Okay.
right? So there's
Mm-hmm.
an aesthetic of fashion to it, which I
Yeah.
obviously do not aspire to in my baseball hat and my Grand Forks Utes football shirt
Okay.
and Red River baseball sweatpants I'm currently in. But I think it's just fashionable enough that she'll let me wear a flannel.
Right. And
Kelly, your
you,
thoughts?
oh, I'm pro flannel. I like flannels. And so I definitely think so. And there, you would fit right in because there's a lot of dads in flannel in the hockey arenas. It's a popular
Yeah.
choice.
I think it would do well to cover my advancing waistline
That's just another perk of
because
the
I
flannel.
I hit
Um,
45 and I found out I can no longer outwork out my diet and drinking habits.
yeah, that's that is not a fun realization.
Mm-mm.
I
Your wife's a tremendous cook too,
I
so you're
just be like me and never work out to begin.
yeah.
So then you have to like establish like I can only eat this much in a day because I'm not willing to work out ever for any reason. So just do that. Do like me. Just take other measures. Get a smoking habit.
I want
Appetite suppressor.
There you go. I want you
Perfect.
both to know that I guest filled in for the boot camp class at the Y, the local Y, and I got quite the compliments from the 40 to 60-year-old women demographic on my teaching.
Uh
You were see that's the real ticket.
yeah.
Is you go someplace where you're a real hot ticket item, and then
Yeah,
you're like, I don't even need to work out.
not a big deal.
look
Now,
how look how
given the
attracted people are to
Mhm.
me. That's I get that in casinos. I'm the youngest person there, so I don't even have to try. They're like, "Excuse me, young lady." I'm like, "Oh my god, are you talking to me?" I knew
um
it.
now I guess the follow-up question, Corey, would be were they impressed with your workout skills, or given the demographic of the ladies, did you name drop Matt Moreland and they were so flustered they were impressed by you?
A little from column A and a lot from column B.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. Listen, again, it's you just gotta pick Matt's no dummy. Just pick a thirsty crowd. You will never not feel good about yourself.
Yeah.
Next
Matt,
weekend,
I like him golden, Moreland.
That's right.
next
That's
week,
right.
my background, virtual background, is going to be Matt Moreland's Elite Prospects page. For those listening, if you haven't gone to Elite Prospects and checked out Matt Moreland's page, highly recommend it.
Yeah.
Yep.
We really need a producer to add a Chiron so we can like live link this stuff.
There we go.
We just sweet talk that gal you live with. I feel like she could be real good for this because she's good at all things, but particularly things like being a producer. I think she would rock that.
I think, yeah, I can get behind that.
Yeah.
I would volunteer Jess for those services, but I distinctly heard her say to me, "No, I don't want to hear you more."
Would she do an official North Dakota After Dark charcuterie we could all eat while
She
we're
would. Now
okay?
that's right up Jess's alley. She does
Interesting.
love
She
the
could be craft
charcuterie.
services.
Kelly, you missed out on the charcuterie. My friend Len and Chrissy came from Iowa and just put on quite the charcuterie show. And when Kyle was dropping off Parker, I said you should come in and have a drink and some charcuterie. And Kyle did so. But I did have to twist Amanda's arm to come in.
Yeah.
I am very sad about that because I love charcuterie, and but it just again we come back to how little I'm willing to do ever. And so like I see those things, I'm like, that looks amazing. And then when somebody, I'm like, how'd you do that? And then they start describing it. And about like 2 minutes in, I'm like, no, no, I'm probably never going to do that. I do like when people do these things for me. So that's the deal. Oh, my cat showed up.
All
Yeah.
right.
Right. Where the
Well,
hell have you been?
it was a good break for the cat because as I'm looking at my agenda for leading this thing today, my items to talk about were flannel check, charcuterie check, sex appeal to the geriatric demographic, and check. Kyle, it's all yours, buddy.
Man, oh man,
Check.
whew, really wasn't prepared
Covered
for
a
that. I
lot.
was trying to do a going to have to find uh my sartorial offering, which I wore on the bench the other day. I got new shoes, which was a discussion amongst the coaches is are we all going to wear the same shoes? And I think we've got about 66% buy-in.
Are you going to have to
Ooh.
buy Cody's
I
shoes?
was
Because
just going to say, who's buying, who's not buying in, and please name names. Is it Eric Fabian or is it Cody?
It is more of a skills-based non-bench coach that we bring in to improve the lives and hockey game of the young men, um, which is, I think, just
Sounds like someone I know.
I think the weather hit him hard that he can't wear Brooks on the bench or in the rink.
Yeah, he's also not very cool. So I love him so much. But like when you try to make him do things that are cool, he has like an allergy to it. It just doesn't take to it. And he also believes that he knows what's cool, which is also not true at all. So it creates a problem. But you
Yeah.
know what? He also doesn't purchase any of his own clothing as an adult. So if someone sends me the link to these shoes, they could just show up at our house
Oh, I'll put it in the
and
chat.
like all his other clothing and shoes. So yeah.
Well, Kyle, in that case, since you're still thinking about what you want to talk about, we could transition to something that you had talked about in that you had said you were going to tell, whoa, look at those
There they
shoes.
are.
There they
Sorry,
are.
I got sidetracked.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah,
District
but
question.
if you're going to buy, wow, are those navy? I
They
can't
are
tell navy and
Navy.
black apart. What?
They are confirmed Navy.
Okay,
These are aviators colors. I couldn't sell
pretty
them in
stylish.
black and red. That's beyond my abilities. But aviators colors, they are nice.
Yeah.
So how quickly would team dads start to adopt the official attire of shoe wear? And who would be the first?
Jeremy Swanson.
Yeah, Jeremy'd totally be down.
I had it between two guys, and Swanson was my one of the two.
Was the other one Jamie?
The other one was Jamie.
Man, look at that. Tremendous consistency.
Early adopters and also probably more fashion inclined than myself. Who would be the last dad to get those shoes?
Tom or Matt?
Well
Tom and
done.
Matt would be tied because I feel like they will die on the hill together of like, but they just need a gentle push.
So, for those of you out there who don't know, Kyle, you're coaching our boys now in hockey, and we've started the hockey season. And you were going to talk to me about a mother of one of the opposing teams. We played a bunch, so we won't be too specific,
Yeah.
who was obviously doing some interesting things in the stands.
Yeah. So I was actually watching another one of the Pee Wee teams in town, which was a lot of fun. Went and checked out a game and was standing behind one of the moms from the other town, who was, I'm assuming, the goalie mom, because she was keeping her own shots, which were not drastically different, but different enough from the official timekeeper, and was, I would say, inflating the shot totals for their own team. Anything that came near the net was a shot. Um, which I found interesting. She wasn't overly verbose in terms of her cheering, but just kind of quietly keeping the stats. And all she said was at the period break, when the husband walked by her to go look down the tunnel, she goes, you know, nothing negative, right? And that was it. She went back to her shots.
You know, okay, maybe she needed. So one of the dads on our team, um, actually taught me how to, because I was confused as well. Like, is that a shot on net? Is that a shot on net? And he told me that the definition of a shot on net is anything that would go in if a goaltender was not in the net. So if the net was completely empty, and nothing was blocking it, that it would potentially go into the net, and
Yeah,
anything else doesn't count.
right.
So maybe she needs the Ryan Backsky bookkeeping course that I received. That was a fantastic course because prior to doing it with Ryan Backsky, I was terrified. And then afterwards, I was like, oh, okay, I think I could handle this. So, but maybe you can't, God damn it. Maybe you can't go in with too much bias. That maybe that's the other
Yeah,
thing.
I think that's
And for those of
possible.
you,
Oh, go ahead, Corey.
I was going to say, for those of you listening or reading back on the transcript, don't take that last phrasing out of context.
How did I did I normally I catch my own like that's what she said.
Yeah, oh, wait, totally. Like I went into the Matt Bax guy training a little.
Oh,
It went from there. Like it
hey,
certainly went from there.
listen, I stand. I won't retract anything.
No, I
Okay.
wouldn't either. Why? Never, never take anything back. That's my motto.
But now it's made me real smug because now I feel like I'm good at something that I'm likely very still not good at. But now I just feel more empowered to be like, I think I know what a shot on net is. Yeah, so I also want to say like to certain parents like and like not that stats aren't important and it's something that there's a reason why they're recorded in a game, but like at the end of the game, shy of a goal that blatantly went in wasn't counted. Like, I think that you could, there's probably high level games where you could dispute that shots were missed.
Yeah.
So it's like, maybe calm down.
And in that case,
So
your bonus might depend on shots. So then I'm like, okay, get that right. But for a Sunday afternoon Pee Wee game at any level, I think it's
I think it's just maybe
yeah.
being a little overboard.
so that lends ourselves to a natural progression question is it's a two-part question. One, are all goalie parents crazy? And the second part, should they be crazy? Does this game make them crazy? Kelly, since Kyle is obviously biased in this area, why don't you start on that one?
I honestly, I think it's the latter. I think it's that the game makes them crazy. I'm not a goalie mom. Um, but my mother-in-law is a goalie mom. And I always felt horrendous when I would go. I didn't really, Matt's oldest brother, I didn't get to watch very much. But his brother, just a little bit older than I think like a year and a half. Many of his games I went to, all of his high school games, junior hockey, all of that. And so his mom would come and I would watch. And it is a unique position to be in when your kid is the only kid out there on the ice playing the position they're playing apart from the opposing team's goalie. And it's the hero or zero thing with goalies. People are so harsh on goalies, and I absolutely hate it. Where when a goalie has a great game, best person alive, goalie has a bad game, oh, you should have had that, oh, you should have there's people are very quick to criticize goalies. They're also quick to praise them, but they're quick to criticize them as well. And I will always die on the hill of, I mean, there was a few years ago at a Central game, it was a state qualifying game, and against Cheyenne, and the goaltender let in a goal right away in the first period. Arguably one maybe he could have stopped, and it ended up costing them going to state. And there were a lot of people that really dogged on him. And I said, but his team had 3 periods to rectify that for him. So maybe he could have stopped that, but you can't blame this loss on him. That's not how this goes. So I feel like goalie parents get, or maybe part of it as well is that maybe sometimes they also feel like people are blaming their kid even when they're not. You know what I mean? Just because their kid is the one that ideally is supposed to keep pucks from going in the net.
Yeah.
But that's an impossibility in the game. There's just no way. So I think they're made, when goalie parents act crazy, it's just because their position is so unique. Everybody else can kind of, you can play it off to, oh, so-and-so didn't do their job. I didn't have any support. I didn't have this. But goalies, they're kind of out there all on their own. So I have a big soft spot for goalie mothers and fathers, just because when I'm watching my in-laws go through it, I feel like people pick on goalies and I don't like it. And I also think goalies are typically some of the funnest people on the team because you got to be a little nuts to take that position. So I like goalies because they're a little goofy. And I think we know that those are my people. So
I think there's a sliding scale in goalie parent craziness, uh, just based on how bad the anxiety gets you during the game. I think it can go up and down, but I think it's important to try and keep it in perspective. In that, I think if you can rest on the fact that if as long as the kid gives the team a chance to win, should count it as baseline success without going overboard in the praise.
Hey guys, we talked about this. We're already in a season two. These reasonable takes, when I set you up for irrational thought, are just not doing it.
No, I know, and normally I love irrational thoughts, but like I said, goalies are near and dear to me. I like the goaltenders. I think, and I love. There are just not enough people who want to do it, and I don't blame them because it's such a high pressure position. But they're beyond essential to the game. So, like, I also, when people dog on goalies, I'm like, stop, because then kids won't become goalies. And we have to have goalies. Like, if you have age levels that there are not enough goalies, it is beyond a problem.
Yeah.
So I'm always pro goalie. And like I said, I agree. I think that you can watch certain games where you're like, yeah, you probably should have had that one.
Yeah.
But I think it is rare to see a game where you can really truly say that the goaltender was the one who blew it for the team. I'm like, it's not that easy, you know. There are games where I think a goalie has a horrendous game, but then again, my son's a forward. I've watched him have horrendous games. He's just lucky that there's between 3 and 4 other people playing the same position as him, and he's only out there every so many minutes, you know. So it's hard.
Would you agree with me that I agree with your statement? I think you are correct. It's not that often that a goaltender, he or she, blows the game themselves. But I think the inverse is actually true more often than that they win a game more
Mm-hmm.
often. Just from their, I mean, I'm not saying their players aren't playing, but I've seen some games where some goaltenders won the game.
Yes. Or were the only thing that kept them even somewhat
Yeah.
in the game. I couldn't agree more that there are games where I've said that to my own son. You should go. I don't know if you thanked your goaltender after that game. Best go thank him because he's the only reason you guys even had a shot. So, yes, I agree with you. I think rarely they are the reason it's lost, but they can often be the reason that either it's won or there was a chance of winning. So I don't know. It's such an important position, and I am a highly anxious person, so I respect people that can take high pressure positions like that because I would have. I mean, like let's add a little context. Not an athlete, but in a world where I was an athlete, and I did play girls hockey growing up. Not well, but I played. But goalie wouldn't have been my position. One bad game, and I would have been in tears on the ground. So goalies have my respect. It's just such a tough position to fill. But it is one that I feel like if you're very good at it, you can harbor a lot of attention for it. Because it's not that often that a goalie comes along that you're like, wow, that goaltender is, you know, like a once in a generation talent.
I
Kyle,
think
goalie parents?
just to follow up on Kelly's point very briefly is that I think the to the point of can win games. I don't think it's necessarily one save that'll do it, but it often has replaced, back when hockey was still fun, when you could still fight, that would change the momentum of a game. So sometimes just one good save can change the momentum just to give the rest of the kids a little bit of a boost. So it's not necessarily the fact that the goal didn't go in, it's just something exciting for the bench and the other kids to build upon, where I think that can drive the rest of the game for the kids. Or really at any level, I guess, not just the kids.
Do we think goalies are in danger of like lead singer syndrome, you know, where you get that attention for that really great save and then you think you're the lead singer of the band and
I think I think sometimes the focus can be myopic and just in terms of just you're so focused on one thing forget to be part of the team too. Like it drives me nuts with the kids won't come in. Like if there's something on the bench, they stay in their net. I'm like, no, you're on the team too. You
you're
gotta come listen.
you're actually part of this.
Yeah. So and trying to bridge the gap in terms of like beyond the team, it is a separate position, but you got to be integrated into the whole, which is I think is
Right.
sometimes a challenge coaching wise, just to make sure they're in the loop, as it were.
Yeah.
So we bagged on goalies a little bit, which is always fun, right? Because, like I said, I was a first-time hockey parent with a defenseman, and all I would say is, boy, it's not fun to watch your son, a defenseman, screw up, but at least we're not the goalies.
Yeah.
Right.
But that brings up an interesting point about defensemen. So as I'm watching the first couple games of our Pee Wees play, this is such in from my limited experience in hockey, these years are so much fun for me now that I don't have a defenseman I'm not a parent of a defenseman on this team, is watching young defensemen learn about being offensive and being defensive and what time is the right time for both. And so I'm really enjoying this team particularly has probably more offensive defensemen than I've ever seen on one team, myself personally. And it's been very interesting to watch them as they develop those offensive skills. And sometimes they overdo those offensive skills, which creates the odd man rush. And I'm enjoying it because I know if they're seeing it, if they're, because I don't know that much about hockey, that they're going to be coached on it. And you'll see that development of scanning and counting numbers and knowing when to stay in the rush and when to pull off and when not to pinch and when you're being overly aggressive, which is allowing a winger flying. I'm wondering what your guys' thoughts on are on young defensemen developing the skills to be both offensive and defensive. And since I picked on Kelly to start, I'll pick on Kyle to start.
I think it's important that the kids push the envelope offensively because at some point the game will get beyond you where you can no longer do that. So doing it now while you still can is important because it's too soon to become a defensive defenseman at 12 or 13. And I think it also gives other teams fits if you essentially have five, not only forwards, but three forwards and two rovers, because
Right.
it really breaks down defensive systems as well. And if you have a good team that can cover for that, it is sometimes nearly impossible to defend because guys will come out of nowhere too. If you think, well, 20 years ago, a guy would take three steps out from the net and they'd throw it up to the winger and that's it. They're not going to touch the puck again, probably until, maybe it comes back to them at the offensive blue line. But now, just with the setup, we have in particular, and I think I've seen it with other, youth teams as well, is the defensemen are just going to go. It's like a permanent green light. Hey, if you see something, take off.
Mhm.
And I just like that wrinkle it brings to the game because one, tough to defend. Two, it's a lot more fun to play instead of like, hey, just, get it. Like when I was a kid, like guys would say, hey, if you're in trouble, off the glass and out and change. That's it. Just get rid of it, which is just a turnover and get off
Mhm.
the ice. And now it's like, hey, find something to make it happen. So it lends a lot to the creativity of the game. It's fun for everybody to watch, and it's fun for the kids to play.
Kyle, I'm seeing that as a follow-up question to that, and I'll hop over to Kelly on that one. But I'm seeing this trend even in youth hockey changing in the last couple of years. Like the
Yeah.
last couple of years, when my older boy went through, when they were younger, and he naturally leans to the defensive side anyways. But we're really encouraging now more than ever from my again limited time period, right?
Yeah.
The defense, sorry, the offensive defenseman era. Is that something you're seeing in coaching, or is that
I,
been
I, I
longer and we just
no, I think you're, you mentioned the amount of offensive defensemen that we have on our particular team,
Mhm.
and it wasn't, if you watched a lot of hockey, say in the 80s or 90s, well, Kelly, the 90s were or the 80s were the decade before you were born. Um, but I mean, teams would have one offensive defenseman, you know what I mean? And they would really stand out because people just didn't do that. And then the 90s came, they'd have one or two, and now really everybody can, for the most part, chip in, and they are expected to, right? Even your 5, 6 defensemen need to put up some points. And so that, the old saying is if the NHL gets the sniffles, junior hockey or youth hockey gets a cold, right? It all kind of comes downhill and people start to emulate that. and sometimes go further. And I think that's what you're seeing with youth hockey too, is just encouraging skilled defensemen, not just like, well, that kid can't skate very well, we'll stick him back, or he's slow, we'll stick him, whatever it is. Like
Mhm.
it's no longer a place to, stick somebody. It's where you're often seeing some of your better skaters, the kids with good vision, because now you also have to see the whole ice because you're offensive. It's not like, oh, okay, that winger is 20 feet from me, I'll hit him and I won't worry about it now. You got to see 200 feet how the play is developing. And the coaching is following suit now, where it's not like, well, we're going to split the D in the forwards, and they're each going to work on their own thing. Everyone's integrated. D are taking reps at forward, and vice versa, just so everyone's a little bit more multifaceted in their approach.
Kelly, defenseman, offensive or otherwise, what's your thoughts?
I do love it. I love to see, especially when you have a kid um, that they have both those skill sets. I think it's a great thing. I think it also puts a little pressure on the forwards to be defensive because they have to drop back. I have a kid that tends to, he is a offensively minded player. So when he has to be reminded of the defensive part of the game, it's a good thing for him. It kind of makes me wonder because I know, the term a stay-at-home defenseman. There still is, in my opinion, a market for those, non-offensive defensemen that they're not there to be a goal scorer, but they're very good at preventing goals from being scored. So I love to see, the offensive part of the game, developing, but I also do love when I as I've learned more about hockey, that has been, it's kind of one of those like unsung hero positions, a stay at home defense, where like because they don't have the flash that like a power scoring forward does. But when you realize what they're doing and you're like, oh, okay, they don't get all the praise, but like what they're good at that, like, and it's really, really important. So I love to see, and I would never ever discourage, because I think that they're just defensemen that have that talent. When I was in high school, we our my senior year in particular, Jake Marto, who went on to play at UND, and he was a super offensive defenseman. He was just a fun player. He was fun to watch. Just pretty good at all facets of the game. So I would never discourage it. I think it's fun, but I also, like I said, I always think certain D-men are unsung heroes, where what they do is, it's not flashy, it's not in your face, but you're like, ooh, that is smart and it's vital. So I just don't want to see that get lost either, because I think sometimes, we've talked about this before, where our kids get into their highlight reel hockey. They don't watch a full hockey game, but they will watch every highlight clip. So I feel sometimes like kids feel that pressure that they have to do every part of the game. And it's my husband who showed me, he was like, there are a lot of players who have went really far just being good at the things they're good at, and then just doing those things. And he's like, you might not think that, where you're like, well, what's so special about that guy? But it's because they have figured out what they do good, and then they consistently do it good. So I think about that too, is that it, like you said, there is a nerve wrackingness to when the D-men play a lot offensively. It's a gamble, and I like gambling.
That you
But
do.
yes, so I've never discourage it, but I I also have an appreciation for truly defensive defensemen that just aren't going to take those risks, but they're so good at stopping people.
So your anxiety is literally the best way I can epitomize that is to remember when, if I, Kyle's going to correct me if I'm wrong on this, but I believe Che Genoway's defensive partner was Joe Finley, if I remember right. Now,
Mhm.
Genoway was an extremely offensive defenseman, and Finley was the opposite. And I could not count the amount of times that Finley would get stuck on an odd man rush, and everyone would bag on Finley about how he was always getting beat on these odd man rushes. And I'm like, well, it's mostly because Genoway is generating offense, and and I think didn't
He
Finley
was
have a
the
pretty
only
decent
guy
pro career?
there.
Yeah, didn't Finley have a better pro career?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Cal, do you remember any of
So
this, or is this too early for you?
Uh, yeah,
no, that they I cheered at UND for both of them.
Oh, okay.
Hmm. Yep.
um, yeah. So Finley's a first round, like maybe like 19th overall, big guy,
Yeah.
but also from a dime. I'm not sure how much you want to praise him here,
Yeah,
but
yeah, I know.
Yeah.
It's
There's
backhand
that.
compliments.
yeah, really just a kind of a cup of coffee. I don't even think he made the NHL,
Okay.
or maybe just very, very
I thought he had a
briefly.
few. I thought he had a year or two, but I don't think Genoway
Maybe
did.
most of the time in the minors. But I think that just to Kelly's point about the defensive D is part of the issue is drafting them high. Is those guys are often replaceable. You know what I mean? Like just the early specialization has gone away where you can adjust later on. Like, do you remember a guy named Wes Walds that played with
Wow.
the Wild? Yeah, was a prolific scorer in junior. Just
Yep.
like would blow the doors off of everybody, but couldn't do it and then like adjusted as he went on. And I think those guys often become the best defensive guys where they understand the offensive aspects of the game, but at some point just
Right.
the game outpaces their skills. And so they switch when it's more appropriate, I guess.
Which then that leads me to, in your guys' mind, who's the best defensive defenseman in the NHL of all time? See, I only have one. I only have one name that comes to mind right away.
I've got one too, but it's going to be surprising.
Yeah, I'm sure it is. I've already keyed up the meme to tell you you're wrong, Kyle. So Kelly,
Okay.
you got anything?
Uh best ever.
Winner gets this hot apple cider whiskey smash just made me tonight. I'll bring one over to your house.
I'm gonna go with like an obvious one, but I would say Bobby Orr.
Okay.
I mean, I know that's such a pick me answer.
Mhm.
Jet has informed me I am a pick me girl,
Oh,
so maybe it's appropriate.
you're
But
too
just he
tall to
just
be a
has,
pygmy.
huh?
You're too tall to be a pygmy.
Oh no, pick
No.
me.
Oh,
Great
my
word.
bad.
Again, you have to get TikTok because you're not putting in enough work on
No.
things that don't matter. So yeah, it's things that make no one money and are not helpful. But then, like when my son says things to me like, "You're such a pick me," I'm like, "I know what that means, you little jerk." So yeah, it's a little pick me, but I don't know. I would love to hear your guys's because I'll probably agree with that. He just comes to mind.
Kyle.
I'm going a little more modern. I'm going to say Nick Lidstrom, despite the fact that he put up gaudy
Good
numbers for a
answer.
defenseman, uh, which is almost impossible to beat one on one. He was always in position, and he never had to hit anybody. He was just always in the right spot.
God dang it, Kyle, you and I agree. And I was all
Oh,
queued up to send out the meme that I'm sending now that says it's amazing you're 100% wrong. But Lidstrom, in my opinion, was the best. Yeah, he put up numbers, but never was there a better defenseman with the poke check and staying on balance while poke checking from, again, for whatever my hockey knowledge is worth to you. Just he's a guy that when I've showed my son how to play defense, because YouTube analysis is the best I can give him, was watching him defend, just because he's a magician with his stick.
yeah. It's funny. We talked about that at practice this morning. Is just stick on puck, and that's all. You know what I mean? It doesn't have to be hard. Just have your stick in the way.
There you go, Kyle. I railroaded us for a successful 50 minutes?
That's
I
really
feel
pretty
like
good.
D men are always the bridesmaid, never the bride. You know what I mean? Like it's just they just never get the razzle dazzle factor that those
Yeah.
forwards do. Again, we're back to lead singer syndrome. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? Like D men are the bass player. Like
Mhm.
you ever seen
Careful
when they
now.
interview? Yeah, like when they go around and they're like, name three famous bass players, and nobody can do it.
Uh,
Um,
Les Claypool, uh, Cliff Burton, and getting to three is going to be tough.
you're
Burton.
missing the best one.
Ace
Someone's
of
going to say
base.
Sting, but
No, Paul McCartney.
that's true. There you go.
Yeah, the greatest bass player of all time.
So
Or
granted,
Nikki Six.
Yeah,
He's another one. Very,
yeah,
very good. You know,
yeah. Flea, another one. See, we can name a
everybody
lot of
thought
big
he was
shows.
the guitarist, but it was Mick Mars.
Yeah.
So
Well, it's because Mick Mars was mostly dead.
he's still mostly dead. Sorry.
Mostly dead.
Sorry, Mick Mars. You don't, no one tries to get ankylosing spondylitis, but he's kind of dead.
That's a deep
Those are
pull,
both
Kelly.
true.
Yeah.
It was
That's because
mean,
she
but
watched the Netflix. You had to have watched the Netflix TV show on Motley Crue, right?
the dirt, yeah.
Yeah, The Dirt. Yeah.
Well, if I can, again, the only purpose I serve here is pop culture
Okay.
references, but that can extend into books because I do like to read. It if you have not, if you this was one of those, my husband is not a person who loves reading, so I'll try, like, if I read a book that I think that you don't have to love reading to love, the Motley Crue story, and I believe it is The Dirt is the
The Dirt.
title
Yeah.
of it. And each chapter is from a different one of their perspectives, and it goes around. Fabulous book, worth your time,
Hmm.
wildly entertaining. And that's what that Netflix show was based off of. But 10 out of 10 would recommend. So read it and report back. That's your homework, guys.
Uh, speaking of reading, one of the things I talked about last year was reading that book. I think it might be just called Pee Wee, which follows a Pee Wee hockey team in Connecticut. I think we need to do that and have a book review. Have one highbrow episode.
Yeah, my husband just got done. Well, not too. I'm gonna totally blank on this player, but he gave me like a not great Cliff's Notes version of this. But Kyle, maybe you've read on the story. Guy played in the NHL. I think was really abused by his dad.
Patrick
Um,
O'Sullivan?
Yeah.
yes, Matt read that book.
Yeah,
That is one I would like to read because apparently that's a really interesting story.
yeah, because I think the dad was pretty next level there.
Yeah,
Yeah, the hockey think tank did an episode with him that was fantastic.
Yeah, right. I
If
remember.
you don't want to
Yeah,
read the book, his summation of it on the hockey think tank is it's I actually was driving to a hockey game with Cam, and that was just the next episode up, and that was a very thought-provoking episode for the two of us to talk about after we were done listening to it. It was a tough listen.
sure.
yeah, Patrick O'Sullivan. I think. Let's see. Is it? Um, yeah, I'm trying to find the book itself, but Matt read it, and when he described it to me, I was like, "Gosh, that would be one to read." Just a really interesting take on parents that push hard. And, I mean, and this is a severe example. This is
Yeah,
not, just like tough on you. This is abusive. But yeah, that's another read that we may all have to do, and then we can come back
So the book
and
is called Breaking
book
Away.
club.
Yeah. Breaking Away, a harrowing true story of resilience,
Breaking away.
courage, and triumph.
Yes. Yep. That's the one. So I like I said, we may have to incorporate a little book club into this.
yeah,
Ooh.
that's a great
Maybe I
idea.
drink as much wine as my wife does at her book club.
Yeah,
Right. We can drink wine. That's okay. Yeah.
I think I did the last episode too, if I remember right. Episode one was kind of a highbrow episode for me.
Sophisticated.
yeah. What was that's a really an excellent segue. I sent you guys both an excerpt from Twitter about a former professional hockey player just
Mm,
talking about his path. I'll share it here now. It's Drew Shore. Everybody might possibly remember this young guy. Just retired here. Retired in 21. Played with the Panthers, and of course, you probably remember him.
Oh,
Local people
yes.
probably remember him from Denver here. Just talking about burnout. He had a conversation with a friend of his, Derek Armstrong, also a longtime NHLer. Derek played 17 years in professional, 477 games. Drew did not play that many. Just kind of runs through his process. He talks about from the time he was three, shooting pucks every day just because he thought he had to do it. Derek enjoyed it. Drew left home at 13 to play hockey, which is You used to hear that. Now that your kids are 13, you're like, I can't let this kid go in the basement by himself and
No.
let alone move somewhere to do it. And just because Andrew said he did it because he thought he had to, where his buddy, and again, like not every path is the same. It's everyone can find their way there, but just an interesting dichotomy in terms of how different people go about different things. And the thing that bothered me, I don't say bothered me the most about this, but I had to do it. Worked at the hockey academy for a long time, and you see a lot of really unhappy kids getting dragged in there all throughout the year, and did it because they thought they had to do it, type of thing. So, really kind of good highlight to try and keep things, for me at least, to keep things balanced, in terms of making sure. And we've talked about this before, but making sure kids wanna do it.
Mm,
Um, it sounds like Derek Armstrong's path might have been a little bit more fun. Talks just skating around, just playing with his buddies. But I guess that's easy enough when you're very talented as well. So try and keep that part in perspective too. I
That
would
was
encourage everyone to read it though. It's Drew Shore on Twitter at Drew22 Shore if you're so inclined.
Yeah, I share again. I shared this with both my kids too, just to let them look at it. We kind of have an ongoing dialogue about sports, right? Because the kids know I love sports. I just do. I always have. I like competing. I like sports. But I've always tried to tell all three of my kids. I say two because the boys play hockey and we're talking about hockey. But if you're not doing this because you love it, the scale is climbing as you go higher in age, right? So the requirements to get better and to stay competitive are only going to get higher. We talk about it as a ladder, right? You climb a ladder, and the end of every ladder is a new thing, which is just a new ladder that you grab the first rung, right? And now you got to climb to the top of that ladder. So it's always been the pictorial I put in their brain. And I've always said, if there comes a time when you no longer enjoy what you're doing, so you're not enjoying it, you just won't be willing to climb the next ladder. So we need to sit down and have a talk about that. And it's funny you sent that along because my oldest and I were sitting down one night and he transitioned very quickly from football into hockey. And the requirements of time are surprisingly big for a high school kid. Not bad, but what they should be for a high school level. Just it's can be a fair amount when you bounce from sport to sport to sport with no break because he plays all three back to back to back. And we talked about burnout and where he's at and what he should be looking out for and if he's not enjoying it and that he should pay attention that um and it was funny. What he said to me is, "Well, I've been thinking about quitting one sport." And I said, "Well, which one?" And he's like, "Well, I don't know. I like them all." I'm like, "Well, okay, that's a good thing you still like them all, but then which sport would you want to quit?" And we talked a little bit about it, and I said, "Listen, I think you should do them until a point when you don't love it. And if you don't love it," he goes, "Yeah, but Dad, you spent so much money." And I was like, "Have you been on TikTok?" Like listening to parents complain. And I mean, this is that reasonable take we've been complaining about of ourselves. But I just said, listen, dude, those are sunk costs for you to learn a skill, right? You learned a skill. You got things out of it. I got things out of it. I met a lot of people that I liked and Kyle. And it's it's it wasn't for me, but I got something out of it too. But it's a sunk cost. At which point I sometimes think parents worry too much about, well, what if my kid quits at an early age? And I just think where I'm going with all this senseless rambling, which I'm so known for, is I don't think a kid quitting a sport is the end of the world for that kid, even if they're average to slightly above or slightly below average. I think it's got to be on their time because otherwise you run into this email where the at a certain age, I think kids internalize. It goes from being a little kid where you're pushing them to work, teaching them how to hustle, the little things. And it transitions into they think they'll disappoint you if they don't do it anymore. And I
mhm.
don't think that's a good motivator to do anything.
Yeah, that's very good point.
Either that or I'm completely full of shit. I
No,
couldn't
I
tell
think
you
it's good.
which one.
I think the silver lining there is it teaches kids to have a little bit of agency of speaking up and saying what they would like to do to
Right.
well, to a certain degree. Like if they're wanting to rip beers and go put $100 in the machines at Southgate, that's not great. But just
No.
deciding not to play it, I
Whoa.
know.
That was very specific and judgy. I mean, for
Yeah.
some people, that is your activity. Okay. So,
Well,
or chosen sport.
I'm appreciative that our gambling lobby was quick to pounce on that one.
Yeah, I've watched World Series of Poker. Those people seem very well disciplined and trained, and it's a sport.
Yeah,
Okay.
fair point. Fair points all.
I
But yeah,
agree.
just again, just for them to learn to speak up for themselves a little bit too.
I
It's
mean,
hard.
but even to that degree, like I don't think you, as a parent, if your child quits a sport that you very much identified for a period of years and you enjoyed it, I don't think it's bad on the same point to be disappointed. Like you might
Right.
very well be moving outside of a social circle and getting a bit of FOMO, and you should be okay with their decision to quit, and you should also be okay with the fact that you're disappointed. Like that, all of that's okay. Like you shouldn't hold that back either. But at some point, it can't be involved in the relationship with your child. That's where you segregate. It's like, yeah, I'm disappointed. I no longer get to hang out with people I like and Kyle. And then, but still, it's okay that they've made a decision as long as that decision is being made for the right reasons. And certainly there's the wrong reasons. Well, I hate my coach. Well,
Yeah.
uh,
Right.
I'm quitting because they want me to do 3 practices a week and I only want to do 2. Then you really didn't want to do this anyways. Or I'm quitting
Right.
because you won't buy me a $400 stick every 5 seconds I break one.
I think
Yeah.
you've been reading I'm Okay, You're Okay, Corey. You going right back to
Sounds
the
like it.
70s touchy-feely stuff?
I don't think she put enough booze in this.
Yeah. Kelly, the 70s were the decade when your parents were born.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. Wild
They
time.
got okay. That makes
That
sense.
tracks, yeah.
That
I
makes
just
sense.
I think we as kids our kids are still too young for that, the kids in our team. But I think you guys will see that to some degree of these kids as they're approaching their graduation. The vast majority of them are not going to play college sports. And they're gonna make that transition before you do because I saw the same from my nieces and nephews, where all of them went from gung ho about sports to all of a sudden we're talking about their careers, and they're like, yeah, they cry when their seasons are over too for good, but they're like, we're gonna go work. Like I think they make the transition out of the sport sooner than the
Right.
parents do.
Yeah.
Right.
Assuming
No, I
college
agree
sports
with
exists in 5 years.
That's fair.
that. No, I agree. I think it's so hard too because I read that article, Kyle, that you sent, and I know like something I don't know if other parents do this, but this is a struggle that I always have is between the waffling between am I pushing too hard or are these kids so catered that the very little that we ask of them is not that much? And that's my inner struggle. I'm vocalizing it just in case there's any other parents who feel the way that I do. And I go back from day to day. Like there's certain days where I'm like, maybe I should lay off of him. He needs a break. And then there's days where I flip and I'm like, you know what though? Like it's an hour workout. I didn't ask him to go dig a ditch. So like, you know what I mean? Like
Yep.
I think that's just kind of like the hard part of modern parenting. I don't think our parents thought about this stuff the way that we do,
Right.
which is that's a good thing and a bad thing. It's not a bad thing to look and say, like maybe we could do better. Maybe I could, like I think like trying to do better and evolve a little bit is a good thing too. But I'm so day to day. There, like sometimes, like I said, sometimes I think I'm pushing too hard. Where I'm like, no, I shouldn't have put him in this, and this was too much, and I'm not doing it. And then the next day, I'm like, you are being lazy, and this is not asking too much out of you.
Yeah.
So but I think when I read that article, and he talks about his experience and he talks about his friend's experience. I think one thing that he's not hitting on is the difference in personalities of people.
Yeah.
There are people who are like me, like that kid, that Derek, or that his name is Derek, correct?
Derek
I'm not.
Armstrong, yeah.
Okay. Anxiety drives almost everything that you do. It's that like, oh, I better do this, I better do this, I better do this. And then there are people who can enjoy things for what they are. My God, am I envious of those people? I aspire to be like them. And but I think that that's kind of the one thing. Like, I totally get what he's saying because, like I said, it is a fear of mine sometimes. With like, oh, are we turning this into a job when we add so much to it? But then there's part of me too that's like, you know what though? Different people are motivated in different ways. Certain people can do something like his friend that was like, I went to the rink every day because it was fun and I just happened to be good. And then certain people need that. I'm shooting pucks because I fully understand if I want to accomplish something that this is part of this. So I think there's that too. And as a mom of two children who are so completely different in so many ways, when I see like what I have to do to motivate my oldest son versus what I have to do to motivate my youngest son, I'm just reminded of there are so many different personalities, and what works for one is what will fold the other one. So it's that's kind of what I thought when I read it. Is I thought, but your brain just works different than his brain. There are people who cannot worry, and then to us that worry about everything, it's like, how do you do that? Like, can you explain that? Break that down. And now I'm worried that I'm not doing it correctly, and which goes right back to the problem. So I don't know. That I guess that's kind of the other things that I think about as well is that, Corey, you made the point of you have a highly motivated kid who doesn't know what he would quit.
Mm-hmm.
But what do you say to a parent who has a kid that quits everything that they're ever in? You know what I mean? And they're like, I can't get him to not quit. It's so hard. You know what I mean? Like, I think I'm not making, my point is that I don't have a point. You know what I mean? Like, just that it's these different personalities and what motivates someone on one side of the coin is what would debilitate someone on the other side.
Yeah, I think it's fair. If we had all the answers, we wouldn't have a podcast.
Right. And more than anything, I even just say these things out loud because I always wonder, like, is anyone else grappling with this? You know what I mean? Like, it's sometimes being a parent can feel like, ironically, because we're all doing it, but sometimes it can feel isolating. Like, if mine's ever being a turkey about getting up for practice in the morning, I will think, I wonder if anybody else has a problem with this, but yet you don't want to say that out loud because you're like, because if no one else is having a problem, then I'd be like, oh yeah, me either. My kid loves this. Yeah, he's an angel.
I think if we all sat down and were honest with each other, we would find out how similar we all are.
Right. But I have to remind myself of that sometimes too, because there are times like if I'm losing patience with him, I'll think to myself, I know you're not the only 13-year-old in the world whose parent is like, knock it off. You know what I mean? Like, so like I said, more than anything, I vocalize this in the hopes that someone else is like, oh my gosh, I think the exact same thing, but I don't want to say it out loud.
If it makes you feel better, Kelly, sometimes I have to threaten my 13-year-old with bodily harm if he doesn't tape his stick before a game. It's a $300 stick. Can you just tape it? That's all I have.
Hey, I don't want to bother you, and clearly you're super busy. But if you could maybe think about taping it, God, that would be a wonderful thing.
Your tape job looks like 16-year-old boy hair. For the love of God, just tape your stick.
So you need a goalie. Tape your stick once a year, sharpen your skates once a year, call it good.
You're good. So, right. Maybe that was where he screwed up, Corey. Maybe he was a goalie. This whole time.
I'm fairly certain Parker should have been a goalie. Not because of a particular skill of catching or blocking things, just because if you really spend some quality time with Parker, you might go, he's a goalie.
Yeah. Something, I don't know why I think that, but you're a goalie.
Kelly, you mentioned waking up early for practice, and that's something I need to do in about 8 or 9 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
If everyone's okay, I'd like to close the show by touting the Totten Trail Inn, which we talked about off air, and see if we can get a commitment from Corey to come stay. Now,
Corey, the enthusiasm behind those eyes.
there is
That's
If
not
you know me
fear.
well, I don't
That's
want to
excitement.
do anything with anybody, and this feels like a lot of social
there is
obligations.
there is 90 miles west of us. It's Fort Totten. There is a old Civil War era fort there that has been restored, and there is an inn with not one, two innkeepers. It's also sort of a living museum where you can stay, and I'm going to show everyone. They have a variety of nice rooms. They have a picture of a hanging in there, which caught the attention of my 9-year-old, and I think everyone should take a look.
I, Kyle, I feel like you're either getting a kickback or you really misunderstood our friendship.
No, no kickback. This is the creepiest room that has a cradle in it, and also some artifacts of dead
Wow.
people.
What? See, look at
Two
this.
single beds, if anyone's so inclined.
We'll be like the I Love Lucy show.
Yeah, it's really
Uh,
perfect. The st
married can't sleep in the same bed.
and Corey, this is not for you. It's the stud mess room, not the studless room,
Oh,
in
oh,
case you were
sorry. Hey, which way is the
misinformed.
weight room? Don't worry, I'll find it
Yeah,
myself.
yeah. There's no
There's
weight
no
room.
weight room at Fort Totten.
Yeah,
I don't know if you're getting the vibe off of this place, but
it's supposed to be haunted. The innkeeper told us that someone was staying there that the ghost did not like, and she woke up to find her bags packed the next day. So that's the anecdote she was going with. But Corey, do we have your commitment to go here as a group?
I'm
This
gonna
is the
have to get
horny
back to
room
you on that one,
those
Kyle.
rates are reasonable
for
because
$100.
we
I would pay $100 to stay in the horny room. What do you think? That's how you
hell
pronounce that, right?
yeah. The name is promising
Yeah,
right
with
out the
that.
gate.
Look at that bed, the four poster with the lace.
That's not
Um,
scary at all.
no, with the old dead people pictures.
Oh, and if we can all go home without bed bugs, we can chalk it up to a total success.
Yeah,
Um, but
Yeah.
I'm willing to roll the dice. Like I said, because you can't these like that's an experience. You're paying for a whole experience there, not just a place to stay. That's an experience.
see, this one's actually we have a friend named Jeremy. He can stay in this one. I'm pronouncing it Jeremy for the joke. See, Jeremy room.
It's the Jeremy. I
You
can.
know, when you Google things to do in Port Taunton, let me tell you, the
This should come up
whew,
number one, numero uno.
Yeah.
yeah,
Um,
I think I'll stick to letting Jeremy make our hotel reservations if this is what you're going to show me,
No,
Kyle.
there's no game. This is just for fun.
when I tell you Matt Moreland, you would not get him. He
No.
doesn't like haunted stuff. Like that really bothers him. So like there'd be I think his brothers made him watch too many scary movies as a child, so now he's all traumatized out. But we'd have like one bad noise and he'd be like, no,
Yeah.
no, I'm out of here. Not me. I would just be praying that these spirits would do something cool and upsetting.
Yeah. So they have a staircase and a table. So what more do you want, Corey?
You know, I think it's very telling that you're touting Fort Taunton, and neither of you are mentioning its proximity to Spirit Lake Casino and Resort.
Well, this is what's coming up next. Look at this.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Literally down the road.
And secondly, no one also is reminding us that this is actually near Devil's Lake.
And I'll guarantee you guys I've got a food and beverage credit there.
Yeah.
So we can have lunch.
We can see
Okay.
Joan Jett. We could have dinner, and we can go back to the
Yep.
hotel.
That's right. Yep.
Win, win,
They
win.
they have a pink diamonds machine there and a Tabasco machine there. Both are worth a stop.
Yeah.
Wow. Either I could stay at the three-star Spirit Lake Resort and Casino or the Fort Taunton. It's a toss-up, guys.
$100, Corey.
It's hard to choose. That's what you're saying, Corey. It's hard to choose, but the good news is you can't go wrong. That's the fantastic news. So, well, Kyle, I'm in. but I'm going to have to talk probably one of my sisters into coming with me because I know Matt will never come. But I'm in.
Just to throw a grenade out there. List your sisters in order of who you preference for the Fort Totten night.
Well, no, it's the one. It's not list of preference. It's just the ones that I might have. Katie will say no immediately. She will never do that. Annie and Genevieve, I might have a chance. Probably Genevieve is who I could sell on it.
Not
that
my
would
guess.
She would bite. She works with dogs for a living. You have to be a little not right in the head. You know, we've all been around those people.
Yeah.
She's one of them. So I think we could sell her on this.
Got it. Corey, are you in?
He's giving it a lot of thought.
His headset's not working again.
Yep. He's just doing research. He's like, how is this only $100? That's what I'm gauging off of his face.
Oh no, I went and read the reviews. I know why it's only $100.
You're more so thinking, and they ask people to pay $100 on.
Listen, my parents were teachers. I did not grow up with any sort of thing people would refer to as money. So that's not any and I've stayed in some crappy hotels in my time. And when I was a kid, I thought crappy hotels were nice hotels.
That's right. Yeah.
However, I don't think you'd get my wife to step foot in that place. Even though she also did not grow up bougie and does not have that high of standards, but I just don't think she's going to stay in a haunted hotel near Devil's Lake.
I'll be the first to say it. I don't like shitty hotels. But when you say shitty haunted hotel, I'm like, whoa.
Inexperience, Corey.
You just sweeten the deal.
I don't know if I would call this hotel shitty.
It's very nice inside.
I'm just looking, honestly, those beds look like something out of a fever dream, and I'm a little nervous about sleeping.
Right. I don't think it's truly shitty, but what I'm saying is I think we all know, you look at those pictures and a certain smell comes to memory. Like, you already know how those rooms smell because old has a smell.
Yeah, right? My grandma's linen closet.
Right. Yeah. So that's the thing. But like I said, I'm not dogging on the place. I'm 100% interested in this. And I would love so much if I woke up and my bags were packed. First I'd wonder who came in the room. That would be like the first. But if it was actually a poltergeist, I would be tickled pink.
Look, the Webster room has a top hat on the four-poster. Like you already got your fun time costumes picked out, Corey.
I just don't want to have to go through the problem of having Kyle take an axe to my door at 3 a.m. and me wondering if he's been full on possessed like The Shining or whether he just had one too many old fashions.
Worst case scenario, we're gonna put your hand in a bowl of warm water. Yeah. That's it. We won't.
I'm super friendly, Corey.
Yeah. So I don't know. Think about it, Corey. It sounds. I'm hearing maybe.
I'm hearing a maybe. By episode 3, we're gonna need an answer.
Right. So there is a timeline on this, but I'm hearing maybe.
Yeah.
I will talk it over with my wife and I will blame her when she says no.
We can easily turn this into a ghost hunting podcast for that episode.
Yeah. With the whispers.
Yep. And we need one of those heat sensing things that doesn't actually see ghosts. But ghost hunters believe that it does. We could get one of those.
I will commit to bringing my flip video, and we'll capture the ghosts on
video,
res film.
Yep, I like it. Yep.
Parting
We're
shot.
Be famous.
Yeah, Corey.
You stymied me into a corner here. You literally boxed me into a corner. There are a few things that I would say overtly no to, and you seem to have found one that's pretty high up there.
I'm hearing maybe.
I'll counter you. We could do this, which sounds like you guys would enjoy that. Or we could drive to I Falls, hit up the cantilever.
Also sounds fun.
Also in.
Last time I checked, there are 2 nights in a weekend, Corey.
That's true.
That's a long drive. That'd be like a 5-hour drive.
We're taking a hell of a path, but
yeah.
Give it some thought.
All right.
I'll do the same.
Rent
I got nothing.
Yeah, or buy one from volleyball.
That's true. Those people have to have a price.
Yeah.
So,
All right. Well, appreciate
Kyle, you
your
got to
time,
be up in
everybody.
about 5 minutes, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I'm just gonna close my eyes at the desk and then go to practice.
That'll be good. There you go.
All right. Well, it's been a slice. Episode 2 in the books.
Let's call it.
Call it. Good night, everyone.
All right. Good night, guys.
Good night, all.
Rendezvous with you in Bemidji on Friday.
Wonderful. See you then.
Sounds like a plan.
Okay.
Good night.
All right.
Good night, guys.